Richest man, Aliko Dangote. Forbes magazine estimates his wealth at $25 billion, making him the 23rd richest man in the world with a growing portfolio of investments across Africa. The Nigerian business magnate began with a small trading firm in 1977. Today, his businesses cover everything from cement manufacturing, food processing to freight. Dangote Group employs about 25,000 people in Nigeria. It is building cement factories in 16 African countries and buying mining licenses from Kenya to Zambia. Aliko Dangote has taken on the aura of an economic folk hero for some, turning a loan from his uncle into the most successful business conglomerate in Africa. But to others, he is a villain who's used his political connections to sideline the potential competition. Aliko Dangote talks to Al Jazeera. Aliko Dangote, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera. Thank you for welcoming us into your home here in Lagos.
You're very welcome.
Your story, Aliko Dangote, says what is possible about Africa. Tell us about your journey to success. How were you able to turn a loan from your uncle into the most successful business conglomerate on the African continent?
Africa is full of opportunities. And I think what we did was to harness fully the opportunities that, we met on the ground. We've done quite a lot in various areas. We started first, with trading. After succeeding with trading, now what we did was to go into manufacturing, which is normally a very difficult area, especially from this part of the world because of lack of power.
Right.
But we've been able to resolve those issues, and we're able to, succeed in most of what we are doing.
We are interested in the man, Aliko Dangote. Tell us about your upbringing, because your story is not really of one from rags to riches. You come from a wealthy family in Nigeria.
Well, I came from a wealthy family. My grandfather was my great-grandfather from my mother's side was actually very, very wealthy, Alassane Tata. And then his son, also Sanusi Tata, whom really raised me up because, I lost my dad at the age of 8. And, so after educating me, he gave me a loan of which I was grateful, and I paid back in 3 months, because business was so good. And, I was able to establish myself from the trading to, manufacturing, and now to a lot of daring things, like
right.
Refinery, the agricultural process that we're doing, and also the, fertilizer.
Right. As you say, your business spans a lot of different sectors: cement, flour, salt.
Yes.
Let me just ask you this: why commodities in a country like Nigeria, where oil is king? Why not get into the oil business right away?
Well, you see, at first, really, what we thought of doing as a company, we said that, look, let us work very, very hard and get there first. Because if we had followed that trend of dealing in oil, would have actually tainted our name, that name, because, yes, the household name, because people will always think that, look, you have made this much money because you did a lot of unethical deals in oil industry, because you know the story of the oil industry. So we actually kept out of oil at all and just concentrated on food items.
As you mentioned, you're going up the food chain now, getting into energy, and in particular oil and gas refining. Nigeria has a lot of oil, but not a lot of refined gas, and it has to import most of the motor fuel and fossil fuel.
Yeah, more than 90%.
Of course, and a lot of people feel that Africa could grow a lot faster with more of its own refinery capacity. So tell us about this project that you've started, and also how tough is it going to be for you? It must be very challenging, because you're going to be competing against the European, the Chinese, and the American companies who are all elbowing each other to satisfy Africa's energy needs.
What we're going to do now, really, we're going to do 500,000 barrels. It was 400,000, but we upped it now to 500,000 barrels of oil refining per day. Then petrochemical of polypropylene of 750,000. Metric tons. I know that, yes, it's very, very challenging, but that's what we like. In Dangote Group, we like challenging things, and we like to make sure that we do things where we'll make our country proud and also self-sufficient. So once we do this, Nigeria will never ever import any oil at all, no petroleum products, zero, will meet up the full capacity, and we've taken up a land that will allow us to grow 3 times. So we have plans of also further growth. But the challenges, I think, will be able to surmount most of them because, number one, we're a local domesticated refinery. So most of the logistics cost will not be there. And then we don't have to pile up a lot of petroleum products, in stock because the refinery is there, it's working. Obviously, yes, maybe we'll have about 15, 20 days of reserves, but that's it.
Let me talk about the foreign investment in this country, in China in particular. China's presence on the African continent is huge. China has ramped up its investments in Africa. Is China's presence, in your opinion, a win-win for Africa, as they put it?
I think it is a win-win situation. We happen to deal with a lot of African, Chinese companies, and we've been doing very well as contractors. But you see, most of what is happening, the Chinese are coming here mainly for mineral resources, for what they need. But setting up local domestic industries, I'm not really seeing Chinese people participating in local domestic industries. They are very big in construction, they are very big in providing infrastructure, but really bringing foreign direct investment, they are not as much as the European.
Because a lot of African businessmen, especially at the local level, complain about the Chinese competition.
Well, they complain about maybe different competition in the sense of maybe smuggling of textiles, for example, in Nigeria, because they don't have textiles here, but they are smuggling it in here, where they have killed most of our domestic local textile industries. But participating in the real economy, I've not really seen Chinese doing much there.
Why do you think Africa can succeed without relying on the foreign investments like the Chinese investment and the European?
Africa,
can they really do it? Because
nobody can do that. You see, what we need to do as Africans, first of all, is to show that confidence that yes, it is possible. It can be done, and then the foreign investors will follow suit. There is nowhere on earth where foreign investors will go and create an economy or make that economy great. No. The local people must move first. When they move first, then they will be supported by the foreign investors.
The richest man in Africa for the 4th year in a row, Aliko Dangote, 23rd on Forbes' rich list around the world. How does it feel being so in a continent which is, for the most part, still afflicted by poverty?
Well, it feels a little bit odd, yes, it's true, but then it gives you a lot of thinking and responsibilities. You say, okay, fine, what do I do to impact humanity? And that's why we do quite a lot in terms of our foundation. We spend average of $100 million in Dangote Foundation, which we set up in 1993. And then again, I've just did additional endowment to the foundation, which was $1.25 billion. With that, yes, we do that on the philanthropic side. But then, in terms of creating of jobs, we now have this farm which we have developed. We're doing almost about 120,000 hectares of rice land, and then we're doing.
As I'm watching this, many of the mega church pastors in Africa and their disciples that worships them, I want you to ask your daddy Geos and your father in the law and all your people, how many of them have foundations and funds? And how much do they actually contribute to the foundations and funds to help humanity? This is a man who's a Muslim. And he set aside over $100 million a year for his foundation to help better Africa, to help make Africa great. All your pastors that tells you to bring your Shiloh sacrifice and your offerings and your Thanksgiving and all these seeds and tithes and sowing and sowing and sowing. You bring your radio and your TV. You give your 1 month salary, your 1 year salary to do what? To do what? To make your men of God richer and the church poorer. Here is a Muslim that have a foundation set up that he gave over $100 million to help better humanity. How many of your pastors can sit here and say, I have a foundation? All your sacrifices and your offerings and your Thanksgiving, your tithes, this is where it goes to. They don't tell you that. Their time is up.
260,000 hectares of sugar. which we are targeting to do 1.5 million tons of sugar in the next 5 years. This will create 180,000 jobs.
So you feel like you're giving back, you're doing enough.
Well, we're giving back because we are creating quite a lot of jobs. We are not doing...
This is the purpose. I don't know how pastors will collect money from people who are poor and impoverished and don't utilize and use the money to build schools and hospitals and factories and businesses to employ them. They always bring it. I bring my offerings, I bring my sacrifice, I bring this, I bring that. I sow and tithes and offerings. And what do you get? Nothing. The only person who benefits is the greedy pastors who rob you blind, as poor as you already are. God help Africa to wake up from her slumber
like
and
other
stupidity.
Africans where most of the money is in the bank.
Right.
We don't keep any money in the bank. Whatever we have, we fully invest, and we keep on investing, and that's what we do.
Let me ask you something a bit more personal. How do you stay grounded? I mean, you seem like a very simple and humble man. You know, usually in Africa, when people are rich, they tend to flaunt it. I speak here from experience. How do you stay grounded?
Which experience did you have?
I wasn't rich, unfortunately. But from the different things that I've seen around the continent, even when it comes to the leaders of the African continent.
I have to really tell you the truth. My upbringing from my late grandfather really helped me quite a lot. He was a very, very humble person, and sometimes he used to drive himself. And that's what I do now, you know, even on weekends right now. Once I finish this interview with you, I won't go out to the driver. I'm going to go alone, and I'm going to drive myself. I mean, I feel safe, and really, I don't have any issues, you know, with that. You know, you know, it's always better to be humble. You know, they say that no condition is permanent, so I want to always run my life, whether I have money or I don't have money. I can run it, and it's true. I'm sure your life is more expensive to run than mine.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm sure.
Nigeria is Africa's #1 oil exporter, as we've said, but also probably the largest importer of petroleum products. A paradox, because really it's a system that's full of corruption. There's no denying it. So you've said, and I've heard you say this in several interviews, that corruption doesn't stop business. What do you mean by that?
Well, corruption doesn't stop business. There's no country without corruption. Even our own in Africa is well pronounced because we have very weak institutions. You know, what you need are very, very big institutions so that when you cross the line, there's somebody that will deal with you squarely. But, you know, be it in America, in Europe, or anywhere, I mean, these are countries that also have corruption, not at the same level with what we have in Africa. But
in a country like Nigeria, for instance, sorry to interrupt you, Nigeria is ranked 144 out of 177 on Transparency International list of corrupt countries.
Okay, I don't know the number.
But it's known to be a notoriously corrupt country. So my question is, your journey to the top in a system that's notoriously corrupt, you must have had to pay some kickbacks and so on.
Let me tell you something. We have actually never ever paid anybody any kickback at all.
Never.
And that never, honestly. But when you look at it also, when people are busy getting what you call waivers to make money here and there, we don't do it. If we really wanted to make money, you know, especially that I've been close to almost every president that has passed through that seat, you know, I would have actually, you know, gone into oil. Right. I told you, you know, before that we decided not to go into oil because we don't want to be tainted. Wow. You know, so you don't have to pay. It's not everybody. When you say yes, you cannot generalize that yes, it's a corrupt nation. Everybody is corrupt. No,
it's not a generalization, but the reality is that
it's true. But you know, there are also a lot of people who are busy fighting the corruption.
Thank you.
Some are fighting. Some are, you know, trying to expand it. You know, but I think the government is also trying quite a lot to stop. But it's true, it's an issue that has been on for a very long time. Stopping it in one day is not possible.
Do you think the government is serious, this current government is serious about tackling corruption?
I think yes, they are. They've been, you know, saying it. I'm sure you must have heard them maybe 10, 20 times, but they are very serious about it. There's no nation that will allow corruption to go deep into the society. You try and stop it, yes, people will fight you, but you have to fight them. As a government, you have all the powers. But that's why I also mentioned we need very strong institutions. Very strong institutions will help Africa a lot. And Africa lacks these strong institutions.
Right. You've alluded to this, that you've been very close to the Nigerian government. They've supported your venture. At one point, your company had exclusive imports rights in sugar, cement, and rice.
No, we have never had exclusivity.
But you have,
there was nothing like exclusivity.
There was nothing like exclusivity.
Nothing whatsoever.
So,
Nobody. In fact, right now, if you look at it, let me give you an example. We have invested heavily, maybe $6-7 billion in cement alone. But some people are saying, no, we're not happy because they are too big in the, cement business.
And this is what my question is. What do you respond to those who criticize you and say that you've benefited greatly of government favoritism, which has allowed you to collapse all competition and small business in Nigeria and establish yourself as a sole importer or manufacturer? What do you respond to those critics?
Well, first of all, there was never any time where we were the sole manufacturers or sole importers or whatever of any item. It has never ever happened. Only maybe during when we took risk. Let me give you an example. There was nothing like sugar industry in Nigeria, and everything was imported. Maybe small, the farming side. We took a risk in 1999 and opened up a refinery which we built with about $250 million then. Okay, so if we are the only ones having that sort of refinery, nobody was stopped. How can you say that somebody has given us a license? We are not giving a license to operate alone. Okay, what normally government will roll out, like right now, let me give you an example. Government has rolled out their agricultural policy on self-sufficiency in sugar. Okay, nobody is investing, maybe two of us. So tomorrow, when we are successful, somebody will rise up and say, no, this is a monopoly. It's not a monopoly because nobody has been stopped. That's number one. Number two, government has always been begging people to come and invest. So if we hit the call of government to go and invest, is that a problem with that?
But can you understand that some people may see your close ties with the government, whether it's former President Obasanjo or the current government, as they can see it as a sort of favoritism? Could you understand that?
Let me tell you something. During the regime of Obasanjo had never ever given me anything directly. And I know that
but you helped finance his campaign, according to it.
No, whether I finance his campaign, but when I finance a campaign for anybody, it has no relationship. There are some African presidential campaigns that yes, we fund or we are part of the funding, but we have nothing to do even in the country. What we are looking for is good governance. Okay, so today, for example, during Obasanjo's regime, which favors were we given? The greatest thing that we have actually hooked on was that Obasanjo said that, look, importers of cement, we don't want to see any imported cement. What we want you to do is